Good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, March 15th, 2023. I hereby call the Elections and Campaign Finance Subcommittee to order. Madam Secretary, please take the roll.
Representative Burkhart, Representative Doggett, Representative Haynes, Representative Miller, Representative Moon,
Present.
Chairman Crawford,
Present.
Chairman Rudd.
I'm here.
Chairman Rudd, you have quorum.
Thank you. Do any of the members have any personal orders or announcements? Yes, Chairman Moon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my honor today to have my granddaughter with us and my daughter. If they please stand, and my lovely wife.
Anyone else? Oh, Chairman Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At least we know where his daughter got their good looks from his lovely wife and not him. I just wanted to tell the committee, too, I have a bill coming up in this committee, best bill that's been presented this year, so just take that into consideration.
Any other? Chairman Doggett, you have arrived. All right. I believe that's a full house now, isn't it? All right. We have 10 bills on the calendar for today. First up is item 1, HB 0732 by Barrett, and he is at the podium. We have a motion and second. Do you have any amendments?
I do not.
Okay, no amendments. Tell us about your bill.
Mr. Chairman, House Bill 732 seeks to prohibit any state party from charging an additional fee for any candidate to run in a state primary.
Any questions on the sponsor? Representative Miller, I kept wanting to call you chairman. There's so many chairmans.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You said additional fee, additional. Define that, additional fee.
Yes.
Thank you, Representative Miller, for the question. This bill, as written, would prohibit a party from charging any fee in addition to any general membership fee. So they could still charge a fee to be a member of the party, but as far as charging a specific fee to a candidate only for having access to run on the ballot, this would prohibit that.
Do that.
And if I may, Chairman Rudd, I did
Yes.
not say this before we started, but I would like to ask for a roll call vote today.
Are we allowed at this point? Okay. We just did the motion second, so it's okay. All right. All right. Any other questions? Yes, Chairman Doggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I do have a question for the sponsor, but I am out of order here. I have two constituents that have walked in. I'm going to put them on the spot here, Colonel Don Jenkins and Mr. Jason Guthrie from Giles and Lincoln County. So if you will, help me welcome them in today. And then my question for the sponsor, you had said any additional fee. The way the parties operate now, could the party say that in order to be on the ballot, you have to be a member of the party, and the membership fee to be considered on the ballot would be X amount of dollars?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Representative. The parties have the ability to, are free to determine whatever their definition is to being a bona fide candidate to run in a state primary. And if the parties were to decide that being a bona fide member of the party included paying a membership dues, the same dues that any other member of the party paid, that would be appropriate.
Thank you.
All right. Chairman Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sponsor, you had rolled this bill a couple of weeks to get the Attorney General to give you an opinion. Have you received that yet?
Yes, go ahead.
I did, Representative, and I presented that to each of you through email. I hope you've received it. But I would like to go ahead and address that if possible.
Yes, Chairman Crawford.
Well, the Attorney General's opinion that I received was from March 14th, 2022. So I may have not got the right one or something.
Yes.
Actually, that is the correct opinion that was sent to me after I requested the Attorney General's office to issue an opinion on my current bill. And if you would see attached to that, It is House Bill 1928 that was filed by Representative Reagan back in '22, and it's the exact same language as my bill. And so this question was asked then, and the current AG's office agreed with that opinion and reissued it as part of my request, in response to my request.
Chairman Crump?
Thank you.
I'd like to, this Attorney General's opinion is a previous Attorney General on a separate piece of legislation, not actually on yours. And also, more important than any Attorney General's opinion is the actual court and Supreme Court and court judicial decisions. I got this from the state party. 33 states charge a fee to run for office currently, of which Tennessee is one of those. Most case law is centered around states charging, which has been ruled constitutional. But this law would go back to Starbuck versus Golden, which the same Attorney General's opinion references from the individual side and not the side of the association, which is the Starbuck case. The party's ability to define who is a bona fide is nothing less than the party's ability to define itself, wrote LaRoche versus Fowler, 1998. Also, freedom of association means not only that an individual voter has the right to associate with a political party of her choice or his choice, but also that a political party has the right to identify the people who constitute and the association, and to select a standard bearer who best represents the party's ideologies and preferences. That is EU versus San Francisco City, Democrat Central Committee, because they were charging a fee. Also in Ripon versus National Republican Party in 1975, it also said the parties have a right to charge to participate in their process. The current state law, which yours doesn't change, says that there must be a bona fide status. So it leaves that up to define bona fide status to the party. And the party states to run for politics, you have to meet one of several criteria. One is to have voted in 3 of the last 4 primaries. And the other is to have been active in the party or a member of the party. And what they define as active is dues paying. And so I think no one will dispute right now under current law, the parties have a right to define bona fide status of activity and who can run and be on the ballot from that point. So if they were to redefine bona fide status at their next meeting, that includes a fee to run without being a member, I don't know what that would do. But as I've said before, the Supreme Court has been very clear in freedom of association cases. And so far, there has not been a single case of these 33 states at the local, state, or federal level that they've overturned a state party's ability to charge this in court. So that's kind of where we're at. But I also have Chairman Moon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the sponsor. If you have a membership fee, to be determined that you're a member in good standing, why that is not a default for putting a required amount to be contributed to be on the ballot? That's my question.
Yes, go ahead, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, could you restate the question? I'm trying to.
Okay, so Tennessee Republican Party says that to be a member in good standing, you must pay $200 to be a member. So what's to keep the party from taking you off, or not qualifying you to be on the ballot if you don't pay the $200? It's a question of magnitude in calling it a membership fee. But by default, it becomes a requirement to be on the ballot. Money consideration to be on the ballot. It's just a question of the amount.
Go ahead.
Well, I think to clarify the difference between a membership fee and an access to the ballot fee, which is essentially what this is a ballot tax that the parties are charging. If you equate this to your local YMCA, every member of the YMCA pays the same membership fee to be a member of the Y. If the Y were to determine, in order for all members, if anyone wants to then suddenly have access to the swimming pool, they had to pay $500 additional dollars, that would be different. That's over and above a membership fee. That's what's going on with the parties, and that's what this bill seeks to prohibit. And as far as the AG's opinion is concerned that was provided, the AG's opinion in the AG's office cites that common sense as well as constitutional law compels the conclusion that government must play an active role in structuring elections. The Tennessee Supreme Court has similarly recognized that the authority of the Tennessee legislature to control the conduct of elections held in this state is manifest, in citing Bemis Pentecostal Church versus State. But more importantly, when it comes to the 14th Amendment guarantees of freedom of association, the AG says, most relevant to the proposed amendment is the constitutional guarantee of freedom of association. The U.S. Constitution, through the 14th Amendment, guarantees this freedom. The AG goes on to say, if anything, the proposed amendment might have the effect of enhancing that freedom because by prohibiting political parties from imposing fees on their candidates for public office, it removes a barrier to political association. It does not create one. That's the difference.
Yeah, we got one ahead of you. You finished, Chairman Moon? Representative Burkhart.
Thank you. Just an observation. I feel like this is a little bit of overreach because the Republican Party is not a product of the government, you know, and how far can we go to tell other organizations or clubs or whatever what they can charge and what they can't charge? And I kind of have a problem with that, and I kind of want you to explain what the difference is, please.
Go ahead.
Well, I believe if you're going to consider it an overreach for the state to legislate a primary election in any way, then you would suggest that the state does not have the right to cap what a party was to charge. So right now, it's only $500 for one of the parties currently to run for state representative. What's to say that they decided next year that it's $5,000 or the year after that $50,000? Surely this legislature has the ability to regulate those fees so that every citizen in the state of Tennessee has access to be a candidate on the ballot.
Chairman Crawford. Oh, were you finished? Okay.
You said something that I need explanation on. You were talking about the YMCA, that they charged a membership fee, and then if they wanted to charge additional, which they do, for the swimming pool or whatever, what's the difference in that in telling the Republican Party what they can charge? Or the Democratic Party, doesn't matter.
Right.
It's a private business, so how can we justify telling a private business? I mean, that'd be like me walking into Burger King and saying you can't charge but $5 for a Whopper or something, you know. Explain that to me.
Representative Barrett.
Well, the difference is Tennessee and citizens of this state have constitutional protections to have access to the ballot and access to be able to run for office. No different than in our history of having taxes placed on people to be able to vote, to limit the type of people that could vote. This is a tax that it limits the type of people that can run for office. And the only purpose for the fee is to try to limit the number of people or the type of people that actually get on the ballot. When what really should be happening is that the parties should allow the people that vote the opportunity to decide who it is that they want to represent them. So I fundamentally believe that we as a legislative body should protect the citizens of this state to give them full access to run for whatever office they choose.
Any further questions? Oh, Chairman Crawford, I thought you turned your mic off.
No, I did. Explain that part to me, because I see that as a choice. If I want to run as a Republican or a Democrat, it's my choice whether to be on that ballot. This is more of a bill against the parties more than it is about people being able to get on the ballot, because you can make that choice.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate you asking a follow-up question because it gave me an opportunity to formulate an answer to your first question. And the difference is the parties aren't providing a service for the fee. They're providing access. The $500 is access to have your name put on the ballot. They're not providing any additional service for that $500. The YMCA, if they charge an additional fee for some additional access or some additional service that they offer, they're providing something in addition to. So the reason this bill has been offered is to prohibit any party from trying to prohibit access or create an additional hurdle for someone to get access to being on the ballot.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, or any objections to doing the roll call? All right. Oh, Chairman Dodd.
Question.
Yes.
Thank you. I've been speaking with members of my executive committee on this and talking through things with them about this, because a lot of us, we do have the same concerns. We want to make sure that a person is not excluded, maybe financially, at the time they're not able to pay for the fee to be able to get on the ballot. Now, I know that brings into question your fundraising capabilities and things like that to be able to help offset some of those costs, but it is a cost at times, and you don't want to see things jump to an area financially where it's the millionaires club that's serving in state government, where there's such a high cost to get on the ballot as a member of a certain party, and that excludes good people from those opportunities. I am curious, about conversations that may have been had with. Did you have any conversations with state party officials and get their thoughts on this proposed legislation?
President Barrett.
Yes, first of all, before I ever ran this bill, I had numerous conversations with my local party chairman, and I have support from each of my parties in my district. I did speak with State Party Chairman Scott Golden for the Republican Party, who didn't really have a position one way or the other than to try to explain what the reasoning was for this bill or for this fee. And I don't want to speak for him or put words in his mouth. I certainly don't want to misrepresent what his position is.
Thank you. I know that on the local, if you're a member of a certain party on the state level, we have to pay fees each year. And I think that if you put your name in that area and you're on the ballot as a Republican, that if you lose your bid, do you get that money back? Is that right? Or no? So you just
I can answer that. You get it back in the form, you have access to the, complete access to the voter rolls of your district.
Okay, all right. So there is something in exchange for that. But I know on the local level, there's fees that are assessed to run as a county commissioner, school board member, county executive, whatever the case may be. I would, I kind of understand the thoughts, the totality of the situation, but on the, it really hurts, I think, more locals than it does, someone on a state level. Mr. Chairman, I'm just curious to know, how many rolls has this bill made?
We only had one, I believe, and it was two. Oh, two.
Could we roll this bill to the hill of today's calendar, or two places? Could we roll this bill two places on today's calendar?
Is that a second? Motion and second. All those in favor of rolling to what?
Just two places.
Two
places
places
on the calendar.
All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. Opposed, nay. Let's roll two spaces. Let's see. Next up is HB 937 by Alexander. And there she is. We have a motion and a second. I see no amendments. Is that correct? All right. We also have a request for testimony. You want to tell us about your bill and then testimony, or how do you want to handle that? That'd be fine. Tell us about your bill.
My bill is to allow Washington County, Tennessee, to have convenience voting centers. And there have been resolutions turned in.
Any questions of the sponsor before we go out of session to hear testimony, if you're ready?
Sure.
All right, seeing none, we will go out of session to hear testimony. First up is Billy Savage Short of Davidson County. Any of these 3 seats, and there's a little button, I think it's the first or second to your right. It'll just push it and a little red light will come on. Okay. No.
Testing.
There
Woo!
you go. You're on.
I'm
that.
loud. Okay.
You can sit down.
Okay. Okay, can I go?
Yes. Just state your name and where you're from for the record, and then you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Billy Demetrius Savage Short, and I live in Davidson County, Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm testifying on opposition of the voting centers. This bill is a voting center that you want to create out of convenience. It is not convenient for us voters to give up some of our rights. My profession is nursing. However, every time we vote, I work as a precinct officer. So a precinct officer, I run every precinct. I get to see what's going on with the precinct registration, the registrar, and with the voting ballots and with the scanning machine. It's not convenient, just like we had seen in the previous August primary election, where there was 400 to 4,900 disenfranchised voters because they were at a voting precinct. They were at a voting center. When you're at a voting center, you have more than one precinct. I will say that as an officer and one who has had training for several years, that since 2020, we have not had adequate people to actually come and be trained when it comes to elections, which means that I have to retrain them the day of election. So they're not catching everything. They're not catching when someone is voting in the wrong precinct. Out of convenience, these voting centers will turn into a democracy versus a constitutional republic. I just want to remind everyone that as you took your vow, it was to uphold not only the Tennessee Constitution, but also the U.S. Constitution, and it's against the Tennessee Constitution to have voting centers versus voting in your precincts. Also, I'm asking for you guys to oppose this bill because it's we the people who are a republic. I'm not for sure if people understand the difference between a democracy. I'm not saying you guys don't. This is for the people that are behind me. The difference between a constitutional republic and a democracy. When you have a democracy, it's the majority rules, but there's no minority rights. But when you have a constitutional republic, when we the people, such as I, who is a constituent, when I have the power, there is a majority right, a majority rule, but I also have my minority rights to come and talk to the guys who I'm asking to preserve and protect the constitutional republic by opposing against the voting centers, precinct centers, because they do allow disenfranchisement. And whenever the election commissioner said in the press republic that yes, these were constituents that their votes didn't count, they said that there was no way that we can fix this, which is an absolute lie, because you could have re-voted, but because it wasn't convenient to re-vote, their votes were disenfranchised. And so I'm asking to please consider everything when it comes to elections. Thank you. I hear my bell.
Well, hold it. There may be some questions. Any questions? Chairman Moon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In Davidson County, do you have early voting?
Yes, go ahead.
We do have early voting, and those are not done, and early voting should not happen because, once again, you have voting centers. We go out of our precincts and we don't vote in voting centers. I don't vote in my precinct. So those voting centers, once again, you have more than one precinct. A lot of those people, I'm not saying age is a thing, but some of those people are older, and I'm just going to be real. I'm going to be honest, right? Some of them are not looking at the precincts when they're handing out their ballots. And so that's how you got that to happen. Number one, we had the redistricting, and then we had the voting, and it wasn't completely organized. And we're not trained to the level you think we are.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to establish Davidson County does have early voting, which
Yes.
is a type of convenient voting. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions of the witness? Representative Miller.
And I'm trying to understand exactly what the convenient voting center is. And of course, it's a pilot program, and I'm understanding.
Yes, I understand that.
Pilots are temporary. So let us do it and see if it works, and we can change it or continue to do it, number one. Number two, the question is, even if you had a convenient voting center, that doesn't prevent an election from having other voting precincts, does it?
So, number one, we'll address the pilot. As we all know, lots of pilots that are just temporary actually going to be long-term and permanent. That's just truth, okay? And as far as a voting center, can you ask that question again with having different precincts?
I'm visualizing a voting center
Right.
where anybody that's voting, registered to vote, can go to that center and vote. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, they can go someplace else. It's not a single place of voting. I guess that's my question.
So a voting center a voting center, you're going to have different voting centers around the county, okay? You're going to have more than one precinct at that one voting center. Okay, your precincts are small, and when your precincts are small, it gives we, the people who govern our country in Tennessee, the exact job that we're supposed to do. But when you have a voting center, you get confusion with which ballot. Right? It's more than one precinct in a voting center, and it's outside of your actual precinct. So you're not voting in your precinct when you go to a voting center. It's combining more than one precinct out of your precinct to vote at a voting center.
And I don't know if this question should go to you or the sponsor of the bill, but I think we have convenient voting centers in the state. I think we've established that. I don't know exactly where they are, but there are records of how did that particular center operate. And we should evaluate that to see if, in fact, it depressed the votes, or less people voted or more people voted. I would like to know that.
But have you seen the long lines? As a precinct officer, it's my job, and this is what I've been doing for several years. Have you seen the long lines because you're having to find which precinct you're in, and then it creates a long line everywhere because you're out of your precinct. When you're in a precinct, it's a smaller establishment. You have people running just that precinct alone. You have less confusion. You also have less opportunities to have voting errors when you're in a smaller precinct, because all eyes can be on everything, and we can hold each other accountable to our jobs versus a center.
Okay, thank you.
All right, if no other questions, we have two more, I believe they're in opposition, so now you're free to stay there in case there's further questions, but
Okay.
what I'm going to do is call the other two speakers up and order and let you speak, and then the committee can ask the three of you any thing you have. I think that might be easier because some of you, the questions you may receive would already been asked by the first. So let's go ahead, Mrs. Andrea Gomez of Williamson County and Valerie Williams of Williamson County. And please turn your mics on and state your name and where you're from for the record.
So you have that button that says on and off. Just tap it. Tap again. Okay, tap again. It was on.
And I believe first up would be Ms. Gomez.
Okay, is this working?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. My name's Andrea Gomez. I'm a resident of Williamson County, and I'm here today to ask you to oppose HB 0937, which seeks to introduce voting centers into Washington County. Replacing precincts with vote centers introduces proven vulnerabilities into our election process and disenfranchises voters. First, fair and equal access should be a priority in an election. Vote centers actually reduce the number of locations to vote. Vote center locations are also assigned subjectively by unelected county election commission. And in some counties, vote center access has changed throughout an election year, causing confusion for voters. Vote centers are inhibiting fair and equal access to elections and are in violation of Article 1, Section 5 of the Tennessee Constitution, stating that elections must be free and equal. Also, election turnout data in counties with vote centers indicates that vote centers have not increased voter participation. In Williamson County, voter turnout in 2018, August, which was prior to vote centers, was 29.61%, dropping to 22.91% in August of 2020, and then dropping further to 20.01% in August of 2022. Any anecdotal claim that voters love vote centers has yet to be validated. Second, since their introduction, vote centers have never received a proper risk assessment. The pilot has no protocols or standards to determine any of the following: security, equal access for all voters, public comments and concerns, or withdrawals from the pilot. The duty of our election officials is to ensure proper voter roll maintenance and security of the ballot box. This is best done in a precinct where voters live and poll workers have the ability to manage voter rolls and ballots efficiently. Also, vote centers require the use of e-poll books and voter registration data systems. The e-poll books are networked and insecure, leaving voter data at risk. Third, and most importantly, precinct voting is the only authorized polling location prescribed in the Tennessee State Constitution. Article 4, Election, Section 1, states, "The General Assembly shall have power to enact laws requiring voters to vote in the election precincts in which they may reside, and laws to secure the freedom of elections and the purity of the ballot box." Precincts are determined by population and process by the county commissioners, which are an elected body. Vote centers are assigned by the County Election Commission, an unelected body. Why would we not follow the Tennessee State Constitution? And why should the General Assembly support giving an unelected county election commission the power to subjectively assign vote centers? Today, I'm asking that you adhere to our Tennessee Constitution and oppose HB 0937.
Any other questions of this witness before we hear from the next? If not, I'll ask Mrs. Valerie Williams to introduce yourself and where you're from and your statement. Then we'll open the question up for all three of you if there are any.
Okay. Hi, I'm Valerie Williams. I live in Brentwood, Williamson County. I began poll watching over the last few elections to start being more involved and doing more of my civic duty. I am opposed to HB 0937, which begins voting centers in more counties in Tennessee. Voting centers have been bad for Williamson County. They complicate and discourage voting. In our county, we went from 43 precincts to put the same number of voters into 25 vote centers. Despite these past several elections being much lower volume than in presidential years, while watching the polls, I saw that wait times at vote centers with machines in place were very long at most locations. I have documented reports from watchers in most of our 25 vote centers. I myself was at Sunset Middle School and Nolensville Rec Center. I observed lines that were 1 to 2 hours long most of the day, especially towards the end of the day. We finally had the last voter done at 8:10 p.m. Many folks left the lines as their family and work conflicts came up, and many drove by to check the lines to see if the length was still long, and they were, and they didn't bother to get in line. My fellow poll watchers at other sites documented the same at many locations. These lines were mostly outside. Some were along roadways with no sidewalk. It was dangerous. Thankfully, it was a sunny day. With vote centers, no one can determine when and how many voters will turn up. If there are any internet or VPN problems, which they need for the voter validation and electronic poll books, or if machines malfunction, which we had all of these events happen, or if paper runs out, which almost happened at one location, this impacts wait times even more. Williamson County has done a great job in that we have machine voting with a paper trail. And as all of Tennessee has been recognized for, we have some great safeguards on election integrity, which I applaud. No mail-in voting, with exceptions for a few. No drop boxes, and voter ID is required. This is great. However, vote centers require accessing voter data online, which can lead to increased vulnerabilities. I know running elections is difficult and many complex details are involved, but we can focus our efforts on making our processes more simple, and the precinct is a cornerstone in this. Precincts are at the local government and human level that we cherish and we need to maintain to keep our voting in our control and not relinquish our votes to outside influences. Just as our legislators are coming together here in these halls as a human level of interaction where thoughts and actions are important and valued, so too our precincts need to be kept in working order to keep our voting at a human level where we can know with confidence that our votes are important and valued. We need to keep our voting in precincts, not vote centers. Please vote no on HB 0937. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the witnesses that Representative Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think each one of you could probably answer this question, but based on your presentation, I'm coming to the conclusion, or somewhat, that, and based on your facts of what you presented, that voter participation has been less and less once these centers has been established. Is that a yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Again, if you establish these centers in various counties, because I see the next bill, we're going to be establishing a center, or that's going to be another presentation. In your opinion, what do you think the real purpose or reason or rationale behind these centers? What are the actual goal?
Well, according to the bill that's being proposed, it says convenience, and that's what I'm coming against. Is just because it's convenient for people to not have to. What I don't understand is it's actually not convenient for you to drive out of your own precinct to go to a voting center, even though it says it's convenient, but it's not.
I would add that there are many organizations that are non-government organizations that are influencing our elections on many levels. And there's a nationwide push to put more voters into vote centers with the intent of creating more steps and processes in between me, the voter, and the vote that I cast.
Any further questions? With not, okay, we got another after this, but Chairman Doggett, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not very familiar with what happens in Williamson County, but you stated that there were some long wait times in the convenient voting centers there. When these centers are in place, do the precinct centers still exist, or do they consolidate into a convenience?
They totally get rid of precinct usage and they only do vote centers. It's a conversion.
I will add, though, that there are some counties that do somewhat of a hybrid model where during early voting, they vote in a vote center, and then on election day, they vote in their precinct.
That's what
I would suggest that adds more confusion for the voter. My experience with early voting in Williamson County is in May, my closest vote center was open for all of early voting. And then when the August primary came around, and you see the signs all around town and the notices that tell you that early voting is now taking place, so I went to my vote center the first week, the first Friday, I think, of early voting, and I was told, oh no, this vote center is not open for early voting. There were only two, and that's why I'm saying that it's arbitrary, the vote centers that are selected. So there were two vote centers in our county that were selected to be open for the first week of early voting in the August primary, and the rest of them were closed and only opened for the second week. And so this just kind of, these decisions are being made by election commissioners, and they're unelected, they're not really accountable to the people, and it's confusing for the voter. And it disenfranchises them to the point where they're like, if I don't even know where I'm supposed to go and what day I can go and vote, and it's confusing. And then when they do get there, there's long lines, an hour and a half to 2 hours. So then they try to drive to a different vote center to vote. We need to go back to the neighborhood precincts.
And I will say for early voting in Davidson County, we do have voting centers, and I visit one for early voting because I'm a precinct officer. I have to. But on the day of election day, they do go back to precincts, as far as I know, in Davidson County. So it is a hybrid. However, it does create mass confusion when you're early voting. You're going to a voting center that's not in your precinct. Once again, I am a resident of Davidson County, and I vote at a voting center, not in my precinct, which actually it's a little bit longer, and it's not convenient for me to drive to Bordeaux to vote when I can go just only 3 miles where I'm supposed to vote on election day.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you. I appreciate you coming up, and we will continue. Next up is Director of Elections, Mark Goins.
Mark Goins, Coordinator of Elections for the great state of Tennessee. And I do want to point out that Delana Green from Henry County is here, and Dana, the administrator in Washington County, is watching as well. That's a lot to unpack there. I guess first, I want to talk about the constitutionality. I can't let that stand. If you look at the actual language of the Constitution, which she read, it says the General Assembly shall have the power to enact laws requiring voters to vote in the election precincts in which they reside. So you have the power. It doesn't read that the General Assembly shall require voters to vote in the election precincts in which they reside. And in fact, y'all have exercised the power to have individuals to vote in their precincts, and that's 2-3-302. Or that's 3-3101, where that power is there, except when it comes to vote centers, the legislature has also exercised the power that the Constitution gives and created an exception for vote centers. So in all areas where the counties have piloted and gone forward with vote centers, they have done so under the authority that's granted to the Tennessee General Assembly. So I want to make sure that we're very clear on what the language says. Now, I'm an attorney, and I obviously elections is what I work with. I can't predict what a court will always say, but I can tell you that the current Tennessee Supreme Court, which I would put them against anyone in the nation, they strictly interpret the Constitution. And if you read the language of the Constitution, vote centers follow what the language says. Representative Miller, getting to the question of what is a vote center, it is very similar to what happens during early voting, has already been stated. Essentially, it's wherever a voter is in that county, they can stop at a vote center and vote at that location. And so the convenience of it is really we're going to put vote centers by a majority, a supermajority. So the Republicans and Democrats on the Election Commission come together, and it has to be a 4 out of 5 vote. Now, what we're seeing with vote centers, though, it's 5 out of 5. So these are Republicans and Democrats that are coming together. They're deciding how many locations, where they're located, to make sure that they are convenient for all the voters that's out there. I also want to say that locals, vote centers, the question was asked, where are vote centers coming from? I'll tell you where they came from. They came from the locals. The state never came in and said, we want anyone to do a vote center. There was concern from some of the counties out there, particularly your fastest growing counties, that fail-safe voters, that's the folks that's moving within the county, they were holding up the lines because there was, with convenience voting, you don't ever have to worry about a fail-safe voter. And a fail-safe voter, as we learned yesterday, is a voter who shows up at a polling location who is a registered voter in the county, but they're sent to their correct polling location. Here, if you're utilizing vote centers, if you've moved, you're still able to vote, but you vote the correct ballot. You don't have to send them
Mr.
somewhere.
Goins, your 3 minutes is up.
understand.
But members have a right to ask you to clarify anything that's been previously stated. Is there any member? Yes, Representative Miller.
And Director, thank you for that. My only, I guess, question at this point, based on your experience with the convenience centers and the presenter's experience, over a period of time, does this give voters a greater access to voting, or it doesn't? Because what we all want to do is to make sure that every voter, registered voter in the state of Tennessee, have access to voting and can vote. I mean, it's difficult right now to get people to come out and vote. So we want to encourage that as often as we can, at least I do. So the question becomes, is convenient voting centers good for the citizens of Tennessee when it comes to having access to voting? Or does the statistics and the data say, well, one of the presenters said no, less people are voting because of these centers than if they were not there. So how would you respond to that?
Well, specifically to the data that was given, 2018, 2020, and 2022, you literally got to compare likewise last elections, right? 2018, if you remember the August election, extremely contested primary for U.S. Senate and governor. You did not see that in 2022. When you're looking at the numbers for 2020, that's when the property assessor's on the ballot and not your other offices that's on there. So, you know, you got to look specifically at 2018. You're going to have more people turn out because of the, governor's a high-profile office. Governor Lee was unopposed this last time. You wouldn't necessarily see it. I can't say that it increases turnout. I think if you look at the numbers for early voting, it normally doesn't necessarily increase turnout. I can't get up here and testify to that. I guess the data may show whether it does or doesn't. I don't think it decreases turnout when you're looking at comparable elections. I think what it does do is kind of shift how the voters are voting. Where it could increase turnout, I suppose, if someone is late from work, they're late from getting off work, they no longer have to worry about driving back to where their home is located. They can go to the vote center that's close to them. But at this point, I don't think I can honestly get up here and say that it's going to increase turnout. Effectively, later on, we look at the data, perhaps. I will say that notwithstanding the folks that testified here today, and obviously Davidson County don't have vote centers. I know there was testimony from Davidson County, but I think in the counties where it's been very successful and they've had it, and that's 5 counties that's currently done a pilot, I think if you did away with it in those 5 counties, I think the public would not be very happy in those counties.
Yes, Representative Miller.
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, it was stated earlier that Davidson County has a convenient voting center. You just said that they do not, which is factual.
They have early voting sites like every county across this state. They do not have vote centers. Vote centers are very specific to Election Day. There's a distinction.
Chairman Doggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question was answered by your closing statements to other representative. There's 5 counties that have voting centers across the state. But these are not early vote centers. These are election day convenience centers. Are the precincts that would be in the normal places where they would vote in their precincts, are they closed on election day and everyone funneled to the voting center?
So that's how a vote center does work. So that was an accurate statement. What you normally will do, now we'll say, I think Washington County is at the locations that, I don't think they're going to close anymore. I think they're where they are. But in general, what does take place is you consolidate polling locations and you create more like a super site, if you will, or mega super sites. And once again, this is the local election commission bipartisan unanimous most of the time. In fact, I think it's been unanimous every single time. They choose the number and locations. But that is correct. You do, like Henry County is coming up next. I think they're going from 10 sites to 7 sites. So it's not normally, normally you're looking for, so I guess the best way to describe it is on election day in most of the counties, you're looking where someone lives. Really, for vote centers, you're kind of looking for where they shop and where they work, and as well as where they live. And so you're going to cover where they live, but you're also going to see where they're frequently throughout the day. It's not for every county, but for those counties that's chosen to do so, it's worked. And that's the other key component of this. This is a pilot program. So if Washington County does it and the local people don't like it, they can reject it. They don't have to go forward with it. This is just giving them permission to try it. It's not saying necessarily go forward with it. The other thing is the local, I heard that, no one elected is involved in the process. This committee has consistently, Chairman Crawford is very strong about making sure that the local county commission is on board. And in every instance of a vote center, a pilot project, the county commission has approved.
I will say this, Rutherford's had it for, I forgot what I said, about 6-7 years?
2018.
2018. And when it initially started, I was opposed to it because I didn't understand it, and it's grown on me. This last election, I can only speak for Rutherford. I can't speak for any other county. The lines were long. We had a lot of ballots, and I was looking at the line at the precinct where I normally vote. Then I went down the road about 3 miles, and it was long, so I drove out to a rural area and got in pretty quick. So there were a lot of turnout there. I think there is some confusion among people who do not have actual convenience voting sites. They confuse convenience voting with early voting. And most counties do not have all their precincts open for early voting. They limit that to a certain number of precincts to vote. Same thing in convenience voting. Not all the early vote sites are necessarily open for early voting. They sometimes limit those access to them because of personnel or turnout. But the actual convenience voting, the one thing I can say that has really been a blessing to voters in my county, as far as convenience, is for those who were rushing home from Nashville or across the county to vote and they couldn't make it and the lines were long and they just decided to go on home and not vote. This gives them the ability to vote not in their home precinct, but in any precinct. And most of our precincts are actual voting sites. It's just that they can vote from any precinct at any precinct. And then a few were shut down in Rutherford because they were too close to each other. So it's worked pretty well overall. I think, as you say, it's still somewhat experimental, being just a few years old, and they're still working out some kinks. But I think overall, certainly not everybody, but most of the people I've come in contact with like the convenience of that in Rutherford. I can't speak for any other county. Any other questions of Coordinator Goins? Seeing none, thank you. We will come back into session. We are back in session and back on the bill. Rebecca Alexander, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to assure you that this is for Election Day only. These are convenience voting centers. We also do early voting centers, but this is for convenient voting centers. This would allow you, if you had your mother in the car and you had to take her to her precinct, then you had to go to your precinct to vote. This would allow you to vote at her precinct. We are not closing any precincts in Washington County. We have bought top-of-the-line machines with paper trails, all new voting machines, and our county fully supports this. It is something that would be very good for our county because last year during election we had long lines. People would get very frustrated after standing in line for an hour and finding out they can't vote there. So this would eliminate all of those problems.
Chairman Moon. Question on the bill, Mr. Chairman. See if no objections. We are voting on the bill. All those in favor of, let me get back on track here, HB 0937, say aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, goes on to local full. Next up on item number 3 is a very similar bill for Henry County, I believe. This is Representative Darby on HB 632. Hear a motion and a second. We are on the bill. Do you have an amendment? You do have an amendment?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
What is the tracking number of that?
005181.
That's what I have. All those in favor of attaching the amendment, have a motion and a second to attach the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Amendment is attached to the bill. Tell us about your amended bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I can, I want to speak on the amendment because it's kind of a prelude to what are going to Henry County. Weakley County was one of the pilot programs, and our numbers have increased every year. I can't speak for Davidson and Williamson, but we're a rural area, and these convenience centers are in the areas where they're coming home, big work areas. They're convenient, and our numbers have increased every year, and that corresponds to the bill that I'm running now. We've got Alex Britt at Weakley County and Miss Delana Green here at Henry County. Their integrity is off the charts. I trust them to do what is right, and she has from Henry County, the resolution there that says this is what their county does, and that's what I'm here to do, is to represent them. So this bill right here authorizes Henry County to establish a convenient voting center pilot program.
Question on the bill. We have a question on the bill or any objections? Have a second? Seeing none, we are voting on HB 0632. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. No. Motion carries, goes to local full.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
That puts us back on item number 1. Get my paperwork in order here. All right, we're on item number 1 by Representative Barrett, which is HB 0732. Where were we? I guess you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In speaking with my colleague, I think it may be best for me to have an opportunity to have a little bit more time to work with the parties to see if there's some way to make this bill suitable to their needs as well. So if the chairman and the committee were amenable to this, I'd like to roll this to the first calendar of next year to give me an opportunity to do a little bit more work on this.
Are there any objections to roll to the first calendar of next year? Do we need that in a motion and second, or if there's no objections? All right, seeing no objections, it is HB 0732 by Representative Barrett is rolled to the first calendar of next year.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
That brings us back to, I believe, item 4. The HB 0169 by Vice Chairman Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is House Bill 169, a voter registration bill.
You have an amendment?
Amendment 4547
That's
rewrites
what we
the
have.
bill.
We have a motion and second. So moved. All right, we have a motion and second bill. We have a motion and second to attach 4547 to the bill, an amendment. Okay. Well, we didn't have a motion on the bill originally. This is on the amendment, so that's fine. Thought we had to do both. All right. I will take that as a motion on the amendment. We have a motion to attach the amendment. Any objections to voting on the amendment? All those in favor of attaching amendment 4547, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. It is on the bill. Tell us about your amended bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there to be testimony on this bill?
See none, no.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. A little bit of code. This is 22107A, paragraph 2. States that property rights are protected by declared eligibility to vote in municipal elections if municipal taxes are assessed on the real property. Continuing on in paragraph 3, current code, if municipal charter provides for property rights voting no more than 2 persons shall be entitled to vote based upon ownership, and that is in current code. This bill is to avoid taxation without representation by giving equal protection under the law by allowing votes in municipal elections if non-residents are permitted to vote in those municipal elections. That's the crux of the bill, and I stand for questions.
Any questions of the sponsor? Any questions? Seeing none, I guess we're prepared to vote on the bill. All right, we will be voting on the bill. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Noes have it, bill fails.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Next up is item number 5, HB 0388 by Vice Chairman Wright.
This is House Bill 388. Is there testimony to be given on this bill?
Let me get there. No.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I believe we have an amendment on this.
No, sir.
No amendment on this one?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we got a motion and second on the bill. Motion and second. We got a motion and second on the bill. Please tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A candidate or political campaign committee shall not accept contributions from persons who are not residents of this state at the time the contribution is made that in the aggregate exceeds 30% of the total contributions received by a candidate or political campaign committee for a primary election. The intent of this bill is to reduce outside the state interference in Tennessee elections. With that explanation, I stand for questions.
Well, we do, as I thought we originally did, we do have an amendment we need to attach to the bill, I believe. I have 5259 on tracking code. Is that correct?
Just
okay.
One moment, Mr. Chairman. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and second on the amendment. So we have a motion and second on the amendment. All those in favor of attaching the amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Amendment is on the bill. Please tell us any further, if you've explained the amendment, any further statement on the amended bill. Any questions of the sponsor? Seeing none, we're prepared to vote on the bill. All those in favor of HB 0388 say aye. Opposed, nay. No. Bill fails.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Next up on the agenda is HB 0974 by Glenn, which is a 1 week roll. And next up is item number 7, HJR 042 by Hardaway. That is moved to the Hill. Let me get back in form here. We will be moving that to the Hill of the calendar. Next up is item number 8, HB 074 by Hardaway. We are moving that to the Hill with no objections. Item number 9, HB 1039 by Chairman Crawford. We have a motion and a second on the bill. Let's see, I believe you have no amendments?
No.
Okay. Tell us about your bill, sir.
Is it all right, 5% from my chair?
Yes.
Thank you. This bill was brought to me by the Secretary of State and Election Commission. There's a few things here that need to be straightened out on the GIS systems. This bill provides a uniform process that would verify county election commissions have correct assigned voters after redistricting and before elections are held. This process will take place every 10 years. At the conclusion of the redistricting process, the coordinator of elections will share the addresses, the district data, and other things with the comptroller's office. After the comptroller's office looks at it, then they will get together and compare it with all federal and state and county GIS informations. The comptroller's office will provide the results. The election commission, the election officers will flag the addresses that need to be reviewed. The county administrators of the elections will review the potential misassignments, and they will go back, look at that report and from the comptroller and coordinator of elections and fix those and report back to the comptroller and the election commission to make sure that this process is done correctly. It will ensure all voter assignments have been uniformly verified after each redistricting. This goes back to the GIS process that's out there, and this is just another way to verify and keep elections safe in Tennessee. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions of the sponsor?
Question on the bill.
We have a question on the bill. Seeing no objections, we will be voting on HB 1039. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Bill passes on to local full. Item number 10, HB 1020 by Chairman Doggett. We have a motion and a second. Tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I may, can I roll this to the final calendar, please?
Yes. I would see no objections. We'll roll HB 1020 to the final calendar. All right, we will now go back to the two Hardaway bills that were rode to the Hill. Is Mr. Hardaway here? This is their first calendar. Let's see, we have 20 minutes. Do you want to take a 5-minute recess to see if we can find him? All right, well, it is first calendar. We'll roll these just a moment. Let me get there. All right, we will roll, seeing no objections, we will roll HB 0274 to the final calendar. Final calendar next week. Seeing no objections, we will roll also HJR 0042 to the final calendar. Seeing no objections, we'll roll the final calendar. And does the committee members have any announcements in closing? If not, I am open to motion to adjourn. We are hereby adjourned.